Hi there, welcome back. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to video number 3 in the restoration series for this Philips B7X14A. This is a bugger. This is the one that stripped me up. It was fighting me like crazy. And after the last video, I was facing a few challenges. Well, I'm smiling again. And that is because I now love Philips again. And as someone said, this is a round. It's in a ring. It's like, this is not part 3, this is round 3. And I won't give too much away because I do want you to see the video, but I won this round. I won this round with, I won't say with a knockout, but it's a pretty good result. So if this sort of thing interests you, stick around, enjoy the video. Well, I found the problem, or rather the problem solved itself. When I did the continuity checks, I did it from, connections going to the switches, then from the switches and so on. And the one place I didn't check through, I checked to the connection points, was the balance spot. And it seems that one side of the balance spot wasn't making good connections. So let me show you what we have now. I've got a signal coming into both sides, and it's in the back there, going to both sides. I've got this on stereo, and I'm going to put the volume up. Ta-da! Now, what do we have here? We've got 2 volts per division there, 2 volts per division there, so we've got a problem. Our tubes are not equal. And I'll tell you what I've done. I had these 2 in there. Remember, one of the original ones and another one that I found was Siemens, and they seemed to be working fine. I could hear the tone. Obviously, I couldn't discern difference in amplitude. What I've put in there now are 2 new EL84s, JJ EL84s. I had this problem when I tested it. I wanted to check whether the tubes were actually giving us the same amplitude. I can play with the balance spot here. It reduces that side, but that yellow trace is definitely way too low. This is in the middle. This should be the same both ways. So my last suspect, it could be the EL84. So I'm going to replace that as well. Switch off and take it out. By the way, you didn't hear the tone because I've replaced the speakers with 2 820 ohm resistors to simulate the 800 ohm speaker loads. These are 800 ohm speakers. Philips did that. I think they were trying it at some point to build transformerless radios, and they ended up using a transformer anyway. Okay, a new JJ ECC83. Let's switch it on again. What the heck is going on here? I think we've got a contact problem down here. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Ah, okay. We had a contact problem there. The balance control is approximately in the middle, pretty close. And the amplitudes are very similar. What have we got here? 4.79, 5.1. That is pretty close. I mean, that's just a little twist of the balance control and you go the other way. See that? See that? So our 2 sides are fairly close. 5.1 to 4.85, 4.9. That's very, very close. And it's a nice sine wave. And I've got restriction on because I still didn't trust those contacts down there, and I also didn't trust the fact that a little spring might still be running around there somewhere. I haven't found it yet at this point. Okay, so I'm pretty chuffed with this. I like it. I like it. Let's see what the tone controls do. Now, I've got this on, I can actually take it off. This is on hi-fi. I can take it off and this makes these guys active. This is more bass, or rather less bass to the right. This is a 1 kilohertz signal, so it shouldn't be that affected. That's maximum. Here's the treble, and indeed it does affect it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try the frequency response, see what we get. I'm going to change this to 2 kilohertz, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, no, actually that's 10. See, that's come down quite a bit already. But if I go to, well, let's go back to 1 kilohertz. Let's just take one of them. Let's take the yellow trace, okay? That is at, I'm going to change the amplitude to, what do we got there? 6.7 volts. Let's make it 6 volts. 6 volts, okay? Now I want the 3 dB point, which is 0.7, so 4.2. So I'm going to increase this till I get 4.2 volts. .54, yeah, okay. That is 11 kilohertz. So Gera, you're right. Just around 10 kilohertz is where we get our 3 dB point. So the feedback circuits are being kind to the speakers, or rather being kind to the source of music they were playing in those days. So I might change that feedback capacitive network and see if I can't get better fidelity, because as somebody rightly mentioned, these speakers can certainly handle it. The point is, this thing is working, and I'm really pleased with that. I really am. That's an 11 kilohertz sine wave there. I keep going, obviously, it comes down. That's 20 kilohertz. That is 20 kilohertz. That's at 1.8 volts. So obviously that's gone way down. Now if I go down here, it's fairly flat to 1 kilohertz. And if I go lower, fairly flat, that's 100 hertz. Starting to go down. Let me go down even further, 90, 80, 70. Yeah, that's 50. That's already down to 2.93 volts. Okay, so I've got the answers I wanted. I had a problem with one of the triodes on the ECC83, and I've now got 3 tubes that are all new. So the ECC83 is new and the 2 EL84s are new. 3 new tubes, plus, as you recall, that little bugger, the EZ81 there, was also replaced. So this is not boding well. So far, of the 4 tubes that I'm using on here, for the audio section, all 4 tubes have been replaced. Bloody hell, that's a bad record. You may also notice that quite a bit of cleaning has happened. I cleaned all the switches there. It's come out nice and clean, all cream. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. No specks, no marks, nothing. Those guys as well. All they took was a bit of old toothbrush. Clean that up. These actually all come out. That one there I cleaned in place because I would have to unwind this, this dial cord. I didn't want to do that. But all that's been cleaned. And since I had the faceplate out, I managed to clean all the chassis that was normally not accessible. So that's all been cleaned as well. So as far as cleaning is concerned, it's going very, very well. A few things still need doing, obviously, like the, what is it, the luminescent screen, the switches. I'm trying something. I want to see how that works, but I won't tell you yet, depending on the result. So let me carry on here. Sometimes you get smart and sometimes you get lucky. This time I got lucky. I couldn't find that spring anywhere in the radio. I used magnets, I used all sorts of things. And then I thought, well, let me check the floor. So I stuck these little magnets, neodymium magnets, on a ruler, and I swept the floor with the ruler. And of course I can't see this thing, it was so small, but at the end of every sweep I would check what I'd picked up, and lo and behold, there it is. Haha, found the little spring. Gotcha, you bugger. I win this round. And of course, when you're feeling lucky, there's nothing like pushing your luck. Since the switch that I'd glued actually held, the one on the right-hand side, I thought, why not try it again on this one? So I cleaned it properly, I roughened the edge, and I think perhaps one of the problems is that I had the actual break on the opposite way round, so it didn't actually make a proper contact. Got them together with this really good super glue, and guess what? The next day I tried it and it's still there. See that? It is staying. Now I put that clip on the top, and I decided not to push my luck too much, so I've only put one little clip on. The other spring is kept safely in storage in case this one goes walkabout. The last time this thing sprang out and I lost them. I don't want to do that again. So for now, that switch is repaired. We'll see how long it lasts. And of course, you can't look at the front of the radio without this thing not staring you in the face. This is the Retroluminescence screen, I think it's called. It is kaput, and I've actually checked. I connected this to a high voltage supply, very current limited, and I could see this thing just zapping away there. Bzzz. So obviously this thing was really messed up, and I thought, well, how am I going to do this? Somebody suggested that I use, well, actually, somebody told me that Philips had actually issued a service note where they tell you to replace this thing with basically a diffuser with 2 dial lamps at the back, one on each side, 6.3 volt dial lamps. I've got it on my service manual, and I've actually overlooked that. So thank you. I really appreciate that. It really sort of cleared my mind a bit, because it seems that this issue is something that's been debated a lot on the forums, especially the Dutch forums. Well, I decided to do that. I wanted to use a diffuser plate. You can use the back of one of those file folders. You get them in green, which is perfect. So I was all set to do that till I took this out, and I realized this thing is very well done. I mean, it's got these 2 beautiful clip-ons that you screw onto there. It holds it in place, and they're 6 millimeters deep, and they are transparent. So I thought, well, why not get a little bit more creative and put a plexiglass thing in here? So I bought this plexiglass. This is exactly the same size as this, okay? It's a little bit thicker. This comes to about 4.5 millimeters, but I know that there is 6 millimeters, okay? So I bought some plexiglass, and I wanted to use the diffusion property of plexiglass, where you can actually make designs on here, you can write on there, you can draw on there by really roughening up the surface, putting an LED on the edge, and it reflects off that. So I went on the web again and saw what some people were doing, and the first thing they tell you to do is to roughen the edge. Now, I wasn't sure whether you had to do one or both. I've actually roughened both, and I used a sander for that. So here we are. I think the grit I used was about 220 or something like that. I have sanded it, I've roughened it, and now if you look at this, it actually fits perfectly in there. Says he straining against this thing. Yeah, okay. It fits perfectly in there. 6 millimeters. 5 millimeters would probably be a better bet, but I couldn't get 5 millimeter plexiglass. This advertising company cut this for me. Thank you, guys. And once you get this in there, you've got exactly the same thing, except you've got a diffused plate on here. Now, you could just use 2 little dial lamps at the back here, like they tell you to do with the other diffuser. But I thought it would be best to actually use LEDs. And the way to do that is, let me take this out. If you take an LED and you put it on here, the light diffuses into the glass, because this side is transparent. It's very smooth, right? And it reflects off the diffused surface. So you should get a glow on there. Now, I've actually tried this, just, free holding it and see what sort of light you get. I'm going to use green because that's the color they had. And I think this needs 2 on each side. I'm not sure. I'm going to put one there, one there, one there, and one there. And guess what? This thing has holes on here. It actually has these little square holes on here. And if you take this LED, which I have filed the end of, by the way, smoothen the end, flatten the end so that it touches there. You can use it without flattening, but it's better this way. I've got these. They are 5 millimeter LEDs. They are high brightness and they're green. And if I take this and I push it in here, it fits perfectly. It actually holds it in place. And if I put that in there, it's actually touching. I don't know if you can see that, but it's actually touching. So all I need to do is I need to put 2 in here. There's another hole there. It's about where I want them. Perhaps a little bit wider would have been nicer, but this is what I've got. I've got these two holes through there which are not used, and I can actually bend the legs of the LEDs through there. I can solder the two common grounds on the back. Probably I'm going to use the 6.3 volt supply that's on the little lamp, the dial lamp on there. One side is ground, one side 6.3 volts AC, so I'm going to use that. So what I'm going to do is the ground, the negatives of the LEDs, I'm going to join them together. I'm going to put a little metal foil to this section here, which will then screw onto the chassis, so that'll be ground. And then I've just got to worry about the two positives, which I'm going to put together, and then with a resistor to that supply, I'll be able to control the current that goes through here. This is a diode anyway, but I'll maybe even put a diode just to rectify it. I don't even think you need to, because the reverse voltage won't be enough to blow the LEDs, but I'll put that anyway, and I think this will work. I'm going to do it on this side and on that side, and effectively the only thing I need to do is bring one wire, which is the positive supply, over the top to join that positive supply, and I will end up with 4 LEDs in parallel. The voltage drop when this thing's bright is about 2.6 volts, the green ones. So if I look at 6.3 volt supply minus, what would that be, 2.6, so it'll be about 3.7. A 3.7 volt drop across a resistor. I want about 40 milliamps to come through, so 10 milliamps each. That's probably too much, but let's call it 10 milliamps each. That's 40 milliamps. So we're talking about a 100 ohm resistor to drop the voltage, to bring the voltage down and allow the right current through to light up these 4 LEDs. So enough talk, I'm going to do that, show you the result, put it on there, and we'll test it, see what it looks like. I'm hoping it'll look good. Are you ready? How's that? I like it. I really, really like it. I think this is as close to one of those luminous screens as I would ever get. And I don't have to worry about 275 volts. It's just the, I'm using the dial lamp supply over there. But what I did is I put these guys on there. I've got a little ground strip, copper strip stuck to the back of this, which comes down to the bottom where the screws are, or where the screws are going to screw this thing onto the chassis. The two grounds of the LEDs are soldered to that strip. So that'll be the ground. The positives are soldered together and they go across in that white wire. On the other side, same story, and the two wires go together to, first of all, to a diode, which basically rectifies the AC voltage from the dial lamp supply that I'm going to use, that dial lamp over there. And that's 6.3 volts AC. You know, if you rectify it, one diode will give you half-wave rectification, so theoretically this thing should be flicking, but it's not. It's perfectly smooth here. And so I get a 0.7 volt drop over there, and then I've used a 100 ohm resistor, which I can replace. I'm going to make it easily accessible because depending on how bright this is inside the radio, I may need to reduce it or increase it, and I'll decide that then. But this thing is looking fantastic. I like it. I really like it. It's clean. It's in the original brackets, so there's nothing new on here. The only thing different really is it's working. And I don't have to worry about a high voltage supply, which is a relief. So I've got my dial lamp or my dial illumination sorted out. And this really works a lot better than I expected. Perhaps that white wire at the back that's coming from there will need to be, taped down to the chassis so we don't actually see it. I don't think we'll see it when this is inside a cabinet and it's all dark at the back there. But I'm not sure. I'll have to see how that works out. But right now I am incredibly satisfied with this. And this is like the third or fourth punch that I've thrown in on this round. I'm considering this round a round that I've won for a change. And this, hopefully this is an indication of how it's going to go forward. Hopefully. But I'm going to, count my blessings for now and just take a break here. I've got the dial illumination done. I've got the switch sorted, which seems to be holding. I've been flicking it quite a few times. It hasn't broken. I've got the spring at the top that hasn't disappeared yet. I'm probably ready to put in the second spring and finalize it. But yeah, okay, I don't want to, don't want to have a party just yet. This thing is it's leaving me very, very pleased. And that's the first time on this project that I can say that. So yeah, okay, I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so on Patreon. Once again, thanks for watching. Bye for now and stay safe.